Hey everybody, I am here with my friend Jared Bundy. Jared is the Director of Digital Marketing at Laurel Highlands Visitors Bureau. And I've known Jared, my God, what, like a decade maybe?
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, so it seems like all the people I'm interviewing, I either don't know at all or I've known them for at least a decade. So all the people I'm interviewing, I met around 2010. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to jump on board here. You're doing awesome things.
Thank you, sir. Always appreciated. You flatter me. I'm getting a little red in the face. Uh, so you work for Laurel Highlands Visitors Bureau. You're the Director of Digital Marketing. So primarily your industry is tourism marketing, right?
Right.
And how did you get into, well, first off, how did you get into the marketing industry in general? What was that touch point that said, I need to do this?
Sure. Yeah, so I did not start off as a marketing major at all when I was in school. So I was at St. Vincent College and I was a comm major. So I was just going through kind of, at St. Vincent, we have a lot of like core classes. So you have to take so many English, so many math, so many science, and all of
Mhm.
that. So I really just signed up for a marketing class sort of on a whim, and I took consumer behavior. And I don't know, something clicked. Something clicked when I took that class, and it completely changed my outlook and really gave me a purpose for what I wanted to do in my career. So being able to understand consumer behavior uh, kind of guided me, and then I've always been able to kind of layer my communication work with that.
Mhm.
I'm still doing videography and things like that I've wanted to do in my career today. So, in a way, I feel very lucky and honored that I'm able to do, really what I want to do with marketing, but still use all of my classes that I was taking at St. Vincent and
Right.
beyond.
Yeah, I feel like with what I do and what you do, there are a lot of crossover skills,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes we just kind of organically find our way toward marketing. In fact, I would say communications is a bit more broad in general. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't always have to do with marketing, but graphic design is almost always tethered to marketing.
Absolutely.
So I'm finding that, where you're having to do maybe some graphic work and some video work, I'm
Hmm.
having to switch gears and do communication based stuff,
Hmm.
uh, which is a really interesting experience to have, especially if you weren't trained for it or don't know like the history of the profession.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so it's fulfilling creatively then.
Oh, for sure. Like I definitely get a lot out of it. I will still say that, my most fulfilling work is when I get to make our television commercials, our radio ads, and things like that. When I get to kind of combine all of my skill sets, I feel like that is when I really feel like I'm in the groove with what I want to do in my career. I don't know if there is necessarily a full-time guy that makes commercials for companies position out there, or maybe that's more of an ad agency type thing. But
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, there was, I remember meeting a fellow out in Steubenville, Ohio. I think it's M Media. Like that's all they do
mm,
is just make commercials. And I hope his business is doing well right now because
right.
no one is advertising. Um,
Yeah,
how
we
has,
just made
yeah,
the sorry, we
oh,
just
good.
made the the kind of the tone that everyone has been going for, and I we just launched it yesterday. But kind of like the LH Strong, like in the Laurel Highlands, about a way to bring our businesses together and to look out for each other, through this
Mhm.
crisis. So, I think everyone's kind of pivoting and doing something similar.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that because this is something that I'm experiencing. So, our work tends to, you and I, our work
Hmm.
tends to cross over in more ways than one, at least philosophically. So, for example, you just mentioned LH Strong,
Hmm.
and that's really trying a campaign, for lack of a better word, to get people to invest in their local economies,
Right.
their neighborhood businesses right down the street. Um, what I'm experiencing where I live in Bellevue is that campaign has also hit here. However, it's more organic. And I think maybe this would be an ideal natural result of the work that you're doing. So you lead the charge, you create the comms and the strategy, and then ultimately the people it benefits take it on themselves. So the local hardware store, this is the flagship store for like 6 other hardware stores in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and they're going all out with trying to help the community, and the community in turn recognizes that investment and that willingness to support, and now people are going to that hardware store and making orders for things that they don't even really need.
Right.
So there's a reciprocal investment. Would that be a sort of a natural conclusion to LH Strong?
Yes, that is exactly what we're going for. So the video is really our phase one of this. We want to, put that out there, just something that we like, have great voiceover, good music, just tight editing, and really kind of like inspire. First, we want to get people, the aspirational piece of that. But
Yeah.
already I've communicated internally we have 600 partners. So I've communicated with them, and I shared all the LH Strong assets. So they have the logo, they have printable signs that they can go and hang up in their place of business. And they have their own assets that they're going to be able to create with this as they go. So we've already seen a few people organically posting to Instagram, but we really hope that picks up in the coming week. My goal at the end, like, I don't want any credit, or, we don't need any money from this. It's all about, I hope that at the end, no one knows Laurel Highlands even made this. Everyone just remembers LH Strong as a way that our 3 counties came together, to combat this pandemic.
And I that would be an ideal, and perhaps even longer term, it becomes a sustainable platform. Like, you're telling very specific stories of people in place and how they're transforming those people in places while being quarantined. It's quite an interesting dynamic. I see awards in your future. But nevertheless, yeah, but seriously though, like, comms, design, marketing, they take on a stronger life when they loop in things like community engagement and economic development. I would say essentially that's what you're actually doing.
Right.
It's less comms and advertising, and it's like full on economic development. And it's also something that, everyone can believe in. So like your pitch there, it's absolutely true. Everyone can relate to it, and there's a lower barrier for entry.
Absolutely. And it's something we definitely need in this time when, a lot of our advertising budgets have stopped or slowed completely. So, we've had to make stuff that's going to be hard hitting, more general, easy to access, no barrier to entry type of content that people can get on board right away, turn that around, and then use it themselves.
Right. So switching gears real quick, what areas does the Laurel Highlands serve?
Sure. So we are a 3-county region. We do Westmoreland, Fayette, and Somerset. So we kind of like hug Pittsburgh to like the east and south. So we're everything from like Greensburg, Murraysville type area, all the way up into New Ken in the north. And then we go down all the way to like Fallingwater, Ohiopyle, and out southeast to Seven Springs.
Okay.
So it's really a pretty wide net when you consider like the land mass of these counties.
Oh, they're huge counties, and it's mostly completely rural. I mean, the closer you get to Pittsburgh, you get some urban centers, but it's mostly rural. And, I always thought, I recall thinking like, Jared's actually kind of lucky he's at LH because they actually have things.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, they have a lot of assets, and, even the rural countryside isn't of itself an asset. So what's your strategy on promoting Laurel Highlands? Like, how long have you been there? When did you first start your job?
I was 3 years in February, so I've now just been a little over 3 years.
Okay. So when you first hit that job, what was your sort of goal and ambitions, and have you been able to make them, have they manifested in reality?
Sure. So, when I started at the Laurel Highlands, I think we were in the middle of a pretty big transition period. I think we wanted to go to new places with the website. I think we wanted to do new things with our destination guide. And that, if you go to our site, you can see that that's like our main printed piece. And for a lot of destination organizations, like, those are your 2 biggest assets, are your website and your printed destination guide that you put out yearly with everything that you want a visitor to do. So, like, we were in the middle of, transitional projects with both of those. So I was spearheading more of the website portion of that, and we transformed that into something that was like way more searchable. That there were a lot of features that were just kind of like had ballooned onto there, and it became this like animal almost, right? So we had this like website that did everything, but when you looked at the analytics, it wasn't doing much, and people weren't using that functionality. So we were making something modern that was actually useful to to potential visitors and to residents and all of our groups that regularly visit the website. So that was pretty much year one. And year two was we did a big marketing study my first year, and we got tons of great results from Red House in Pittsburgh, if you've ever used them.
Yep.
And they were just talking, all this consumer behavior stuff, all the stuff that I like live for. Like, here's where your travelers are coming from. Here's what they're actually interested in. Here's your like pillars of advertising that you need to be hitting on, and here in these geographic areas. So, I mean, we took all that data, all those recommendations, and made it into 12-month campaigns that I execute, December to January, every year. Where we are just in December we start running with our winter ads, and so we're very seasonal. So I started doing all of our skiing, all of our winter sports, all of our kind of like resort spa getaway type things for December, January, February. Transition into spring content, and then really with our heavy hitting seasons of summer and fall of all the great outdoor stuff to do in our rural area, like you mentioned. Just so so many amenities that you can only do for maybe a few specific months, and then they close up and you have to wait again.
So storytelling in this respect is going to help really drive people to these activities, to these places. And each one of them has their own unique story, and especially it depends on who's telling them, right? So what kind of story, or how do you tell a story that resonates with people that are interested in coming to the Laurel Highlands? I feel like it's, just from my perspective, I'm out there occasionally just by default due to proximity, me being in Pittsburgh. But like, how do you get people from other states to care?
Right. Yeah. So you have to demonstrate why you're worth the drive, and that's, I think, the pitch that we are making a lot of the time. So we have to go to consumers in maybe Detroit, or maybe Cleveland, Columbus, that may not be familiar with us. And a lot of times in a 15-second video ad, I have to make the pitch and try to close the deal to a click to a website, or at least to some sort of inquiry to try to get them to get a destination guide and have some interest in our website. So again, from that Red House study, we have really tailored everything we're doing down to age range and activity level and interest online, down to very specific sites you're going to try to target you with that specific content. So you are going to be seeing different ads from us than your students that are watching this, as opposed to my parents that would see a completely different ad experience, because I want them to be doing other things in the Laurel Highlands. So I think at the beginning the storytelling starts with making sure that I'm hitting an audience that is going to be receptive to what I'm even selling, right? I think a lot of times you can create great content or great videos, and they have an audience of none. So you spend all this money and you create these beautiful assets, this beautiful website, and you launch this thing, and it has no legs because there was no audience for it to begin with.
Yeah, you basically just described higher education. The phrase of like the best laid plans of mice and men, et cetera, that is absolutely the case on my end. I could spend days stitching together a beautiful video package or, a series of ads, and they just fall flat.
Yes.
Not constantly, but I mean, it happens to all of us on my side of things. And it's super frustrating. But it's one of those things where like you still have to produce the content,
right?
Because sometimes having some content is better than not having any. And I would actually argue against that. I think there are some cases where just not having anything is maybe better. But nevertheless,
I have to be careful here with my higher ed background what I say.
Oh yeah. Well, of course. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything that hasn't been thought of before, but. for example, and this is rather timely, an example of content that I wish did not exist, virtual graduations.
Oh, right.
I watched one on YouTube the other day, and it basically had all the executives of the institution, the deans and the department chairs. They're all sitting on a stage in their cap and gown, and no one was there. It was incredibly staged, and there was like a teleprompter, so the speakers, the executives, they didn't come at anything naturally or organically. It just felt very rehearsed and at times monotone and tone deaf. And I was just like, yeah, this is a situation where that should just not exist. Because sometimes, like, imagining what your graduation would be is actually better than experiencing a virtual one, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I've seen some very amazing stuff being done in that space. I saw someone trying to do a graduation ceremony in Roblox or in Minecraft or in something else. I'm just
right.
Like guys, what do you think this is going to be, even at its best? Like, how good can this be with your Roblox character running around causing mayhem during a ceremony?
Yeah, exactly. So I would probably find that actually very entertaining, but
right, for me, I want to attend all of those virtual ones, just like, and also be like adding to the chaos.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know Minecraft well at all. I just know that like you can tear the ground apart and go underground. I think I would try to tear the ground apart underneath wherever the podium would be and just have them fall into this pit.
We got to keep it. If we see one, we can join in. We'll have to go in and see what we're able to do, because that would be a good video. Yeah,
let's look at the art schools that teach like video game and animation design.
Right,
we can figure it out. So you had said you started in higher ed before the tourism marketing. What were you doing?
So I was doing pretty similar to what I'm doing now. Just I guess to a way different, and I guess a smaller target audience at the end of the day. Where I'm really just going towards students in that 16 to 18 range and their parents to kind of get them interested in visiting the college. But I worked for Mercyhurst, Westmoreland County Community College, and for St. Vincent, all as a digital marketing role. And pretty much at every place I went in, they were in the middle of a web design. This seems to be my calling card, even though it doesn't get mentioned in the interview. But I come in, there's a whole new website project. I take that over the finish line, and then I guess I'm on to the next place. Yeah. So, doing that, even at 3Cs was creating social media. It was just like, it was their first venture into that world. And, a lot of times people didn't know about how this was going to be used in a marketing function. So it was creating that and onboarding and trying to get people to trust these platforms. Right. So, this sounds like cliche now I was starting in a time when people didn't have a Facebook presence at all with their pages.
Yeah, and how that world has evolved and turned. You probably, when you started, you probably had maybe no budget for social media.
Oh, no.
And now social media is most of your budget.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, at just going back to and what people were willing to pay for it and things, we would go and pitch people. This was even before Mercyhurst. I was with a little 2-person firm in downtown Pittsburgh. We would talk about this is what we can do with you for SEO and for blogging and for all of this stuff. And the skepticism was so real at that time. And all of it was just trying to pitch people to be to take a chance on this for an incredibly low amount of money.
That content marketing stuff is a fad. It is not a strategy. It doesn't add anything at all.
Yes. Right. So my thing, that was always my foot in the door. This doesn't work anymore because of how Google has changed. But I would just go and I'd be like, tell me the keyword. I will get you to the first page of Google in a month. If I don't pay us. Right. But back then there were ways to do it. And we knew them, and that's what we executed. We're like, we'll get you to the first page of this term. Let's go. Let's get, unless it was I don't know, something insane like toys. I can't promise you that. But for a bunch of those, when no one was talking long tail keywords, that's what we were doing. We were taking all the people's long tail keywords, making landing pages and blog content for it, and getting them optimized and like surging them in the search results. So, and like how far we've come since then.
So I don't know if you can hear this thumping in the background, but my daughter is throwing a ball at the door.
Excellent.
And I'm about ready to take it away from her.
Wait, whatever you got to do.
Yeah. No, I think my wife has it anyway. Cool. Okay. So you got a background in higher ed. Mm-hmm. You're learning how to market to people, specifically a 16 to 18 demographic and their parents, 42 to 53. So your career has really been defined by marketing to people, and not, business to business. It's very much B2C. Right. And when you're on the admissions side, you learn a lot about how people perceive your advertising and your communications, and you're able to nudge and tweak and mold and shape changes to that in sort of like an A/B testing scenario. And then I can see all of that learning being able to transition really well to tourism marketing. What are some of the more salient sort of lessons you learned on the higher ed side that maybe transitioned to tourism?
Sure. Man, I just think at the end of the day, I just think you learn to trust a lot of the platforms and a lot of the things that you're using. And yeah, I think a lot of people, even I was skeptical of some of the stuff or of Google AdWords and things like that, because I was running on such a micro budget for so many things. And I would get to the end of a campaign and, I would have some clicks or some data. And I was like, am I actually doing anything? Am I actually getting people in the door? And it was super hard to track. So I felt like, there were long stretches of my career where I was unsure. I had some Google Analytics and some Facebook ad data, but I didn't have anything solid. So when I was able to start with, with the Laurel Highlands, and we had a bigger digital budget, I was able to tie those into specific routes, like bookings on our website, or requesting our Port Tour passport, or requesting a destination guide. And I was able to track them all the way from top of the funnel down to becoming a visitor. And even if seeing if they're a recurring visitor, were they one time, did they come back, did they stay at the same place, type of thing. And that has been probably the most rewarding part of my career, is just seeing the impact I'm able to have on the local economy with hoteliers, with local attractions and all of that. So I know a lot of it was staying the course from, not knowing much at the beginning to being what I'm doing is working and it is making a tangible difference in this region. And that's all been super fulfilling.
I'm really excited about building new platforms where they did not exist before. So I'm actually kind of jealous that you got to come in and build this framework that works for you. And with how marketing technology is set up now, a lot of it's automated, right?
Right.
So it's all at your fingertips really at any given time. And you're able to glean a lot of meaningful information out of it to build smart, sensible strategy. What kind of tools are you using? Are you guys on Salesforce at all? What do you use?
Yeah, so we don't do a ton of marketing automation other than some of the stuff that's built into Facebook and Google automatically. But one thing I do use that I love and I love to talk about, because it's probably where everything is going, is AdScale. So it's a company we use.
I don't want to talk about that.
You don't want to talk about
that? No, I'm kidding. No, please tell me. You love talking about it. I want to learn.
Yeah. So it's just so they basically, it is a software program. It's completely artificial intelligence driven that you run over your Google AdWords platform. So for those of you maybe who are watching this that have never used it, for Google AdWords, I'm going to bid on a term hotels in PA, and I say I'm willing to spend $1 for a click to my website for that. And I run that. I set the keywords. I set the how much I'm willing to spend and all of that manually. With AdScale, they're able to come in and I tell them my budget and I tell them kind of my keywords, and they're able to perceive the changes in search volume kind of minute by minute and update my bid strategy. So before I would have to come in every day and be like, cool, that was too high, I'm going to lower it 5 cents, or I was bidding too low and I wasn't getting enough impressions, I'm going to raise that up to $1.50. and see how that goes. And, if you do that and you're running 20 campaigns, all of a sudden that's your entire day is updating your budgets. And, how much value are you getting out of that? So to have an AI take that over, because it's a very menial task, but then deliver amazing results, which is why I've stuck with them. And like we are just being like, it's so measurable to see we are getting more clicks. Those clicks are driving, more people that are actually interested in our page than Google AdWords was. It's people that are staying on the site longer. They're clicking through to more pages. So, I'm not just getting junk robot clicks as well. So like that sort of technology, when it's implemented like kind of across the board, is going to be something that really, I think, changes digital marketing and is going to just let us run so many more slicker campaigns than we ever thought possible.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have a fascination with automated marketing myself. We're doing a lot of Salesforce journeys, and I'm just really now digging into the very granular details of how that works, and the metrics on it are fantastic. So, I mean, and then when you compare those metrics against your Google Analytics and then all the other tools that you have, like, I mean, it's kind of remarkable how structured your job can become in that respect. I'm glad there's a tool out there that does the adjustments to the ad buys, because that sounds awful. Like to have to do that manually. But I mean, your strategy, you wouldn't even have one. It would always be pivoting or have to be modified.
Yes, exactly.
Unless you had like a top end sort of limit on how much you were going to spend on key phrases and stuff like that. So I wanted to switch gears again. I had a question for you, and this may be out of my own curiosity. So right now, my PIT students are working on a project where they're rebranding the city of Hermitage, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And Hermitage is about, well, you're actually probably relatively familiar with it, having worked at Mercyhurst for a spell. But it's about an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh. It's a small community, roughly a 10,000 population. And they're really trying to kickstart their economic development, kickstart their tourism. And they're starting with a brand identity strategy.
Nice.
Right. So my students are doing the research. They're looking at numbers. They're reading laws and the corporate structure of the city and all of these details that will eventually yield a report that makes sense to that community, right? In the 3-county radius that you serve, you have communities there that all perceive themselves differently, even though in reality they have more similarities than differences. How do you adjust your marketing for the Visitors Bureau relative to the individual identities of these municipalities?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the best way to answer that is kind of just be like our strategy on, I would say like paid content as opposed to organic content. So, with our paid strategies, we usually go for a lot more of our brand like pillars of things that we know you are going to visit the area for. So things like Falling Water, Ohio Pile, Seven Springs, Namacolin, things that no other region really have something comparable, and we know we can draw you to the area. So that's kind of our like far-reaching, like this is how we get a foot in the door type thing. The kind of like the discovery phase. That's how I want to reach you. And then with that more specific content about the individual towns, about the like, the individual, I don't know, quirks for lack of a better word, the things that make those towns special. That's way more of our organic strategy. That's the stuff we want to post day in and day out on all of our social media channels, our blog, and everything. And that's where I think that content like thrives. People love seeing stuff written about their towns. People are filled with hometown pride, and they want to talk about the stuff that makes their town special. I think they see that, it moves them, and they are more willing to share that and talk about it. And then when you start expanding that way, you can truly see something start to go like, I think viral is an overused term, but you can see something that really outgrows how much effort you put into it, right? You wrote this blog for 2 hours, it's well researched, it has some nice photos, but then you can see it for years and years on your Google Analytics getting hits because people go back to it, they share it with new people, and it keeps growing. So I'm not sure. Does that get at what we were talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, viral is absolutely an overused term and now an inappropriate one. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Pardon me. Pardon me.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I'm glad to hear that because it brings this idea of compatibility
Mm-hmm.
to the fore. So the compatibility between your marketing efforts and that of the municipalities that you essentially serve,
Right.
right? Or you want to promote. Now, the Visitors Bureau is probably the most prepared and set up to promote those individual municipalities than they are themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them really relying on you and your organization to help them promote themselves. And in some cases, like it's kind of hard to be like, yeah, you know, I can't, there's not a lot here that we can work with. There's
Mm-hmm.
some things, but you know, I won't name any cities or municipalities at that. But I can see that being a challenge to want to work with someone. They're excited and invested and they want to be a part of your system,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have much to offer. So how do you kind of pivot from that or propose a solution?
Yeah, it is difficult because you will have, people that want to come on and it's really just like, it is just not a good fit and, it won't be a good investment. We're a paid partnership organization. So there are times we have to have that conversation. It's like, hey, we love what you're doing, but I don't know that I can't sell you a spot in our destination guide and our website, when I don't think it's going to benefit you, when I don't think you're
Right.
going to recoup like that money. So, I think sometimes just being honest upfront opens the door for real conversation later. Maybe when their business changes or their strategy changes, and then you're able to, I think, have a lot, like when you've already been transparent with them, I think they're going to rely on you more in the future to do things with and for them.
Now, is the Visitors Bureau a nonprofit?
Yeah, so we're a 501c6.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're not a full we do get tax revenue. We get the lodging tax, so that's what funds us. So it's what makes this current time so challenging. Is when you kind of get your hotel room and your Airbnb, when you look and see that little like hotel tax, that's what funds your Visitors Bureau. So whenever you're traveling and you see that, like, oh, that's going to my local Visitors Bureau to promote our area. And that's something I had no idea before I started in tourism.
Right. Yeah. Well, the reason I bring it up is because, with tourism marketing, especially if you're attached to a Visitors Bureau, you're sort of, you're definitely a nonprofit. And in some cases, you're a quasi-governmental agency. So
Right.
in different states, they're actually a part of a county or state government. So the need for income is not necessarily a priority, as is the need to accommodate and conform to the mission of the organization, right?
Absolutely.
So
right.
when you have to have conversations with municipalities that want to self-select in and onboard, but there's no practical room for them to do that because they don't have the assets that ideally they need to make a program profitable, you can actually have a realistic conversation with them. And it comes back down to mission. It does not conform to our mission. And we would be doing you a disservice to betray our own mission in that respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, even to build on that, we get the room tax, right? So that's what funds us. And that, so we want a lot of visitors. But at the end of the day, the people that control our organization are actually the voters in our 3 counties. So we are beholden to them as well in a good way, because we want to portray the area like they want it to be portrayed and to do their communities right. But the citizens can vote and they can decertify you. See, they can say you don't represent us as a tourism bureau anymore, and we're going to take our hotel tax somewhere else and do something else with it. So there's a lot of conversations we have to have before we start any major initiative. There's just, many things to factor in. There's government, there's local politics, there's residents, there's visitors, and all that goes into a decision. So, I think sometimes it's like, oh, it's so simple. Why couldn't we just do it this way? And there's always many reasons why not.
Yeah. So, as I had said, my students are doing this work in Hermitage. And I've actually had some of them come to me and say like, hey, I have a really keen interest in tourism marketing, or,
Hmm.
you know, representing marketing and communications on the government side. And what would your advice be, I think, in that context to graduating seniors that want to get into tourism marketing?
Sure. So I would say like a lot of the places I see the opportunities for are going to be your smaller to medium-sized businesses. You know, I don't know if starting off and going right into a tourism agency, because usually there's one. Like I said, we have one in 3 counties, and we kind of go from there, as opposed to looking at kind of these smaller people that are in tourism. So say like your whitewater rafting companies in Ohio Pile. There's 4
Mm-hmm.
different companies in Ohio Pile that do whitewater rafting tours, and they need people to help with the marketing and that. So that's like being a part of a smaller organization and seeing what's available like there is a great way to get your foot in the door. I know a lot of people that have started there, you know, it just started a smaller organization and kind of, you know, worked their way up and are now on to bigger and better things, and are now, you know, in some cases running their own tourism bureaus in, you know, neighboring counties.
Right.
So it's a great entry point. So if you know, go to Visit Pittsburgh or whatever your local DMO, your destination marketing organization is, research that and see, you know, who are their partners. You know, which places are kind of like do a lot of business but are probably only run by 5 to 10 people that you
Mm-hmm.
could come in with what you know and make an immediate impact.
So that's great advice. And I'm curious because I think some people will be looking for inspiration in your work.
Mm-hmm.
Who inspires you?
Ooh, that's so I we definitely get inspiration from many different factors, and this is something I make my employees do as well, is we take time
Mm.
out of our day to look around and see what the other tourism agencies are doing. Like, what are the things that are wowing you throughout the organization? So like right off the top of my head, I know Visit Montana, their photography is like the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen in my life. I don't know
Mm.
if like Montana is just that beautiful. I get big sky country, like I
Right.
get it. Like you have a lot of those natural resources, but like the focus they put on photography and all of their strategies is just phenomenal. Like I'm blown away. If you just want to relax today, like go to Visit Montana's site, go to their Instagram feed, and just scroll for days, and you'll be blown away. You know, we look across the state to the Poconos as a region very similar to us that has had, you know, a great deal of success marketing their industry, and they offer a lot of what we offer. So a lot of outdoor rural wonder, some great landmarks, some, you know, beautiful hotels and resorts. We don't have the like heart-shaped hot tubs, but we have pretty much everything else the Poconos has to offer. So we, you know, we look to our neighbors as well, and you know, conferences exist between not just the state DMOs, but like DMOs across the country. So we try to
Mm-hmm.
attend those every year to get a great sense of what people are doing. Even, you know, little like off the cuff ideas that you don't think will go anywhere, but end up being award winning and doing great things. So
Right.
Visit Lexington is known for their horses, and their dude Gathan, who is very active throughout the tourism agency. He goes and he did like a horse walks into a bar segment where they actually just got a horse, walked him in one of the neighborhood bars, and kind of recorded, and like stuff
I
like
am
that.
so angry right now. Like, so, and I know you experienced this, but like when you hear of like an idea that's just like either just so good or delivered so well, it's just
Mm-hmm.
like,
It's
I'm jealous. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know it's like that's why I say I'm very blessed to be in this industry now, because I mean I get the green light on a lot of ideas. It's why I would, you know, your creative types that are going to be in these classes, like look for
Mm.
jobs in the tourism and hospitality industry. Like you, like I don't know, I'm just unchained a lot of the time. A lot of times I can just go and create what I want, and you know I have to run it by someone at the end of the day, but it's mostly a yes.
Right. Well, throw it at the wall, see what sticks. You never know. Horse walks into a bar.
Right, exactly. That thing went viral and got like 14 million views and was on all the local news. Like that thing was a huge hit. And
Wow.
he knew someone with the horse and they just like brought him in. Like so it cost them nothing. They had a film crew for one day and made this
Yeah.
incredible thing.
Wow. That's so good. I love stuff like that. Love it.
Yes.
Love
But
it.
very
Okay.
different than what I was doing in higher ed. I will tell you that.
No, without a doubt. Yeah, I don't think we could get away with that. You know, I was thinking of like, my alma mater, Savannah College of Art and Design, their
Mm-hmm.
mascot is the bee. So a group of bees flies into a bar and everyone dies from bee allergies. You know, there's I got nothing there.
Right.
Well, I think this is a good point to pivot and sort of wind down on closing our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of touched on like how to, you know, recommending to students to look for careers in marketing or tourism marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice in general for marketing and design students that are graduating in a few weeks and they're sort of entering a volatile, unsure economy where jobs may be a little bit more difficult to come by? What would you say to them?
Sure. No, and I'm really glad you asked me that. So I will say to all of you that are looking at this situation and understandably frightened, and as well, you know, I think a lot of people should be. I will say that, you know, I graduated in 2008, and the housing economy immediately crashed. So it tanked, and the first thing everybody cut was their videographer, their graphic designer, and their marketer. Right?
Yep.
They're the first one to go. They tighten up your
Always
budget.
the casualties.
And you're the first one to go, and it happens. And like, right, so I was coming out of the exact worst time to jump into a marketing position, and you know, I had opportunities in other industries, and I could have went more down a sales route, or I could have went more down a frontline sort of route, but I didn't want to. So I stuck to what I knew I wanted to do and what I was passionate about. And you know, when I graduated, it probably took it's still 5-6 months to get a foot in the door, and I landed with a very tiny agency, and we just had our idea of doing SEO on a very small scale for a couple companies. And you know, I was able to do that. I wasn't making any money, and it wasn't about that. It was about getting the experience and getting the contacts, and about, you know, being able to branch out and make the next jump in my career. And you know, at the end of the day, I'm super thankful that I stuck with what I was doing and made those decisions. So, you know, I'm able to be, you know, living in Pittsburgh and marketing an amazing, you know, tourism region, and just doing stuff that I love with, you know, a healthy budget, and being told yes on a lot of my ideas because I stuck with that. So at the end of the day, my advice would be to not be discouraged by what's going to happen in the next, you know, 4 or 5 months. You know, in tourism, we're talking now about, you know, this might be years until there's a full recovery for us. Not that it is for a lot of other industries. We're going to be hit the hardest by this. But to understand that when this is over, everyone will realize very quickly how much they need marketing. You
Absolutely.
know, people have stimulus checks coming in, no one is traveling, everyone is saving money, and they are going to come out of this with money to burn. And everyone is going to be looking for that dollar, and that means hiring the best marketers to get that done. So, you know, in a way, I see, you know, probably in about 6 months here, it's going to be the most competitive ad buy you've ever experienced.
It's going to surge. Absolutely.
November 2020 will probably be the most insane ad spend I've ever seen with the presidential campaign, on top of everyone getting their budgets back in order and trying to get those Christmas sales to get the numbers back. You know, like, everyone is going to be hiring come September, October, guaranteed.
Super Bowl ad spends will be a thing of the past, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You're going to see ad spends this fall that will blow things out of the water, guaranteed. Everyone's trying to make it back. We're going to be seeing all the major sports coming back. We're going to, like, presidential election, everything. All of the tourism agencies are going to want every single room booked for years after this.
So our next conversation will basically be a year and a half from now, because you're going to be busy.
Yes, absolutely. You wouldn't, even with everything, you know, closed right now, we are still, you know, if I can just talk for a minute about what we're up to.
Please. You know, absolutely.
I mean, we have probably 90% of what we're doing closed. So it's like, oh, what do you do as a tourism agency when there's nothing to visit? So, you know, we're developing resources for everything that's open. All of our takeout and delivery places, we have that organized in a list. All of our breweries and wineries that are doing like curbside pickup and delivery and things like that to survive. I made a page on Friday of all the online experiences. So we have like yoga studios and virtual tours at Kentuck Knob and some of the Frank Lloyd Wright properties, online art classes, even Stage Right in Greensburg doing online acting and jazz classes, which I thought was amazing. So it's all these ways that people are evolving, even in this tough situation, and we're still trying to get the word out, you know, as much as possible to keep business going.
Right. Life doesn't stop.
That's right. That's right.
Well, if anyone is interested in reaching out to you, how can they get a hold of you, learn more about Laurel Highlands Visitors Bureau?
Sure. Yeah, you can feel free to email me directly, the letter J, Bundy, Bundy, at laurelhighlands.org. I'm happy to talk to you, even just like look over a resume or give you a recommendation or something like that. I always enjoy talking to students and being able to help them. So yeah, if you want to reach out to me directly, do that. I do encourage you to look at laurelhighlands.org, see how a destination marketing organization runs. And what the service that they're able to provide for the counties, for the local businessmen and women, and everyone involved. So yeah, just anything you can do to help spread the word of the Laurel Highlands, and please be in touch. I would love to be a resource and hopefully hire a couple people when we bounce back here.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you, Jared. I appreciate it.
Thanks, RJ.
All right. Take care. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.